Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a quick first impressions on a knife that to me is pretty interesting and a bit of a departure for the manufacturer. So we're taking a look at the Kizer slicer here, designed by, you can see the name prominently there on the blade, Michael Gelovic. Uh, Not sure, I don't know much about him. I did try to do a little research and I didn't come up with much. Anyway, I do have this knife and we can talk about that. So this is a bit of a departure for Kizer. Normally, when you think of Kizer, you think of budget-friendly titanium frame locks, and then the Vanguard series where you get some liner locks that have pretty decent action and offer similar or the same designs off in case as what's available in the higher end stuff. This knife is not a liner lock. It's not a titanium frame lock. It's really quite a departure. It's fairly large, which again is not something you always see from Kizer knives. What we have here is the slicer, and this has some features that I really appreciate. Starting up front, we've got this blade, and by the way, it comes in at a price point that I appreciate as well. I think these go for about $75, which is pretty nice. So up front, we have an N690 blade with a flat grind, very thin behind the edge, nicely crowned spine here. Fairly, the Kizer logo and the name of the knife is not a big deal to me. We have a backlock knife and a pretty snappy backlock, but that's not the only story here. So as we close this has a half stop. So as one of the things you'll see people do with backlocks is they're going to try to pop it closed. You're not popping this one anywhere. It has a stop here at the open. It feels like, so the lock is completely open right now, but this still feels like a slip joint. Like there's some resistance for me to overcome in order to get this knife to close. And then you can see here, it's got a half stop. You saw the lock move down there and then finally closes completely. Now, this is not a knife you're going to flick open because of that. All right, and it's not a knife that's going to drop shut. It literally can't. It's going to stop right there. What they're doing here is solving the problem that some backlock knives have, and you've seen me do it on this channel probably many times. I will depress the backlock, flick the knife, and then it closes and catches on my finger. Now, you can see though, this knife's not going to work well for that because the blade comes very close to the handle here. So there's really no safe way to catch this with your finger. All right. So the half stop ends up being quite functional. Now, the big story with this knife, the thing that it does probably better than almost any other Kizer, the Roach stands out as perhaps being similar to this, but this has this contour G10 and an almost perfectly ergonomic handle. This feels so right in hand. It's really it's on the very short list of the best knives that I have ever handled. Like this goes up along with the Manix, along with the 8010, along with some along with like the Feldspar, just some knives that stand out to me as being really feeling great in hand. This is completely perfect ergonomically. Like it just feels so good. And every time I pick it up, I'm reminded like, man, this knife feels great in hand. I'm really impressed. And so to me, the big thing here, the blade and the half stop, those are kind of interesting, and certainly they're not what we usually see on a Kizer, but what's phenomenal is the ergonomics on this knife. It feels so good in hand. It seems like they've given some attention to strength. Okay, we've got the backlock, we've got the full stainless steel liners here. All right. And so, my take on that is that Kizer is trying to deliver something that can be used outdoors or tactically or whatever the case may be. Like they've tried to up the ante in terms of strength, and again, that's welcome. I always like strong, reliable knives, but what is again most welcome is the feel in hand. It's just so good. It's exceptional. Like really, there are very few knives out there that are going to feel this nice. Size and weight. This is a full size knife, guys, and this is interesting. I don't know about, it doesn't translate well, I don't think, through the camera, but in person, this does not feel like a big knife at all. And yet it's 8.5 inches and the blade is 3 13/16, right? Over 3 3/4 of an inch. Now, when it's closed, okay, the closed length here is 4 3/4. So blade to handle ratio is very, very good, right? There are lots of 3.5 inch knives that have 5 inch handles. So to get a 3 3/4 inch blade in a 4 3/4 inch handle is very, very nice. Tons of grip area here. So even if you have quite large hands, I don't have huge hands, but there's four full inches of grip area here. So you can see, even if your handle is quite a bit bigger than mine, I can spread my fingers out quite a bit and still fit them all on this handle. Lots and lots of room there. The one thing I will say is it's a little heavy at 4.9 ounces. Now for an 8.5 inch knife, that's not the worst thing ever. All right, but my first impressions, if you haven't picked it up by now, is this is such a great knife in hand. It just feels fantastic. I haven't had a chance to put this through a ton of use because this is just a first impression, but barring some huge failing, like the heat treat on the steel is just a complete disaster, or the knife falls apart when I go to cut something, heavy duty with it. I don't know what could happen, but barring some weird phenomenon, I can't imagine saying much negative in the review of this, unless perhaps you don't like some of the choices they've made. But for me, because Kizer is just so known for, there's a million and one titanium frame locks from them. There's a million and one G10 liner locks from them. So to see something that's a bit of a departure is really, really interesting. And I'm certainly glad to see this knife. And if you have not thought about this is probably the best Kizer of this year. And I think I said that about the Lat Vind, but that's because I hadn't handled this yet. I would take this over a Lat Vind every day and twice on Sunday. It's a really, really great knife. Again, barring some weird thing happening as I go through some testing with it. Very, very impressive at a pretty good price. And Justin over White Mountain Knives does still have some. So you'll save yourself 10% if you go over there and pick one up. And for those Canadians watching, this is a great Canadian knife. No one is opening this. The half stop means that there's no possible way that you're going to have issues at the border. So there you go. Thanks a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.